Get your day started right. From our shack to yours, this is Coffee and Ham Radios. We are live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning, everyone. Hope everybody's doing well.
Howdy.
We have Colin today from Scotland. This guy is the master at building antennas. I think he one-ups me every time I'll do one, then the next thing I know, he does it better. So usually I'm just doing it on the cheap. I'm doing it on the cheap, and he does it on the high dollar a lot of times. But he's still cheap.
He's quite the baffin with the antennas.
Yeah. So, but we're going to start with James because James was not here today. James, what do you got going on? Anything good?
No. Yeah,
I've got
some new toroids to play with.
Oh, nice.
For that thing that we were talking about the other day, which I'm not sure how much we're supposed to say about. So,
I'm not sure which thing because I've talked about a bunch of things, but
the cat's out of the
good.
bag. You're working on my QRO, my official QRO version of the Poseidon.
Oh, right, yeah. I had mine up for a few days, except until yesterday, and that we had high winds here, and it blew my.
I played around a little bit.
Over.
I rigged something up. I had what was that? A T61, a 240, T240-61.
Mm-hmm.
And I rigged up one with that, and I actually have been using that as well, and that thing works awesome.
Your nemesis down there. He's like, have you burned up anything lately?
Good morning, Don.
Thanks, Don. Ape, what's going on?
Missed you, Don.
I know you've been busy.
Yeah, I built this. It's not quite a drama-free device because everybody got all worked up over it. But I built this yesterday, and this was just kind of like what we were calling the QRO Poseidon. I mean, I don't think this is going to be the exact thing. And then you got to choke it. You got to put a choke on these 4-to-1 ununs. I should have put it in the box because I had enough space in there. But
that's what I said, man, on your video. I was like, man, you could have fit that inside that box.
That wouldn't affect it inside the box necessarily?
Nah. So like when you buy an auto transformer from Palomar Engineers, not auto transformer, they call it a hybrid balun. It's in the box. It's a 4-to-1 unun and a choke balun.
And that's what Michael was talking about when he tested our antenna. He's usually attached. Ape and I've looked at that, and it's like the difficulty of that. Most people probably didn't want to do. So it's easier just to throw the inline beads in there than
like this,
than to build it on there for most people. Yeah, or something like that.
Cool. I think it's really funny that hams are extremely rejecting of new information. Like, no, you couldn't possibly have tested that. You couldn't know what you're talking about. You couldn't have wound that thing like you did and made it work like you showed and have it actually do anything at all. You're wrong. You meant to do something else.
The whole tuner thing, too. I mean, we've been very clear up front that you're going to have a tuner with this, right? That it's not. There's not some kind of secret information that only Ape knows. Well, I've got the only tuner in the world, so this will work.
Well, I think that the thing that they're really worried about is the powdered cores have low inductance value, and then you can get flux leakage is one of the things that folks get upset about. And then the core efficiency on powdered iron, and Colin will tell us all about it, is less than ferrite. And so I think that that's what they get worked up with. But the thing is that you'll see people running RG58 or RG75, TV coax out to their high precision core. And it's like, you're getting loss all over
300 feet,
right? And you're using connectors from the gas station. I don't see silver plated Amphenol. And the thing is that I am losing some power in the green core. It's about 85% efficient as opposed to like a 95, 99% efficient core. But I'm okay. I think I can live with that given the performance of the antenna.
Now that loss, is that as heat, or does it re-radiate and add to the power at the end of the antenna?
I'm assuming that it's being lost as heat.
Okay. Well, I had a guy telling me, he goes, I use 240-43s and blah, blah, blah. It's better than SWR than you have. I'm like, didn't you look at the video, dude? Because I just did that, and it was better in like one place. It's not better SWR. And I don't know. I think he was generalizing for some antennas, and that's fine, but that wasn't what we were looking for. We were looking for something that, you take your little base radio out with an internal tuner and be able to use the bands, because the red one that they say to use will not tune 20, and that's a that's a loss for me. I mean, if I can't do 20, forget it. I'm done.
I'm not even getting out of bed if I can't do 20.
That's right. I'm staying in bed all day.
And I think Ape.
All right, Colin.
Ape even tuned his up into Crazy Pants land. You were doing
80.
60 and 80, right?
Not 60. I won't do 60. Too many rules, but 80.
Too many rules.
Okay.
Mhm.
No rules.
He was
just right.
making contacts on 80. Yeah, I was making fun of him because he's like, it doesn't do 80. Tell you the truth, I've been playing with the newer one, which is I used 43 feet, and that thing on 80 compared to my doublet was only like an S unit or less or two less. But here's the caveat to that: the guys that were only a couple S units different, they were all running major power because they were like just booming. I mean, they're only like in Sacramento on 80, which is
That's cheap.
100 miles from me.
Yeah.
And the guys that were lower seemed to be not as, when they weren't like S9 or better or S8, S7 or better, they were harder to hear because it's a little bit noisier than my doublet. But Tio, do you have anything that you had going on that you just
Nothing.
You had some high winds too here recently. That's what happened. My spider beam blew over yesterday. My wife's like, "You better go check your antenna."
Yeah, they forecasted 50-mile-an-hour winds all day yesterday, and of course we didn't get them. But
well, that's
still
good,
alert,
actually.
the sky is falling. You're gonna die.
Right.
Yeah, probably. Eventually. Not today.
Yeah, sooner or later it's going to get you.
That's right. So, Colin, you've been working on a lot of different projects, and you know, Colin is a big fan of the Moxon, and one day he was beaming the U.S. and we actually made contact finally.
Yeah,
I think I was running a little bit of power. You had a South Africa station first, and I just got my stuff set up way too late, and I was going to try him also because I was hearing him, but he got off. That guy just left right as soon as he got done talking to you for some reason.
He came out of nowhere. He was like, I mean, that's still, I don't know, probably 4,000 or 5,000 miles South Africa. I mean, that's a good contact for us. And he was like an armchair copy. And what made it better, he was on the side of the Moxon. He wasn't even pointing. You know, I was pointing the other way. He was on the side of it, which made it even more impressive.
Craig was out yesterday with a magnetic loop, and he was, I think it was the same guy. He was picking that guy up too. He was going to try and get him, but he was running like 50-60 watts, and I really doubt that he was going to get him with that. But the guy was really strong to him. I could hear him also. But
no, conditions are great, just amazing.
You know, after you and I talked, I decided maybe I'll just get on 20 and see if I can get a little pileup going. And I had a pileup for about an hour. I got to the point where I couldn't talk anymore, so I had to get off the radio. But it was fun.
No, that was a busy day. Good conditions for sure.
What's your latest projects?
So the hex beams, the latest thing that I've been on. So it's almost finished. I had it up last week with the 20.
Is that a metal? Is that metal?
Yeah.
Or
yeah. So that's obviously the center post. It's not a coaxial center post. I'm still just using jumper links.
Still using the coax, yeah.
Yeah. But it's pretty good. Pretty reasonably well made.
Yeah, you did a nice job on that. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's all
those are hard to get
materials.
here.
Yeah, those are hard to get here.
Yeah, and really easy to get here, funnily enough, and really inexpensive. Probably less than $1 each. These.
Oh, really? See, if I did that, how many you got there? They're like $3 or $4 a piece for
me. Colin could be our connection.
Yeah,
the Scottish connection.
But you could do that. You could buy them and then ship them out in a box because they're not a massive amount of weight to them. They're quite light. Those
right. Yeah, I haven't found them here. I found them at DX Engineering because I bought some I've got a 6-meter LFA.
Yep.
And the way that's how they built that. I did it off of guys. Yep. And I didn't like the plan though because they used one down the middle. The only one that had any really stability was the driven because it was looks like a Moxon, right?
Yep.
And so I replaced all mine with 2 of them, and that thing's solid now. It was like probably 50-mile-an-hour winds last night. I bet you it hardly budged.
No, I've never broken one of those. Never. I mean, they're designed for hydraulics, so they're designed for testing conditions, marine, that type of thing.
Yeah, they're hydraulic line clamps. Yep. I'm sure there's some place around here I can get them, but not for $1. I can tell you that for sure. They're like $3 or $4.
They're less than $1 each year. They are.
Wow.
So I use them in most of my things, but so I'm using bigger poles than you. I think you used the 10 mil chuck on your one.
I did.
Yeah, and those are okay, but I went with the next size up. I think it's 3/8. That's 11 mil.
Because you're using the tent poles.
Yeah.
You know what? I like the fishing poles. I bought my first one on fishing poles, and that was way better. Except for I had to install all the pieces every time because you can't fold them up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you go up to the 11 mil tent poles, they're a lot more stable. I'm
pretty sure that's what Buddy Hex uses on theirs. I looked at theirs; they were bigger than the ones I used.
They have 10 mil they use, so it's slightly bigger.
They call them something else. But that's what they are.
But the problem with the fishing poles is you can never get the same poles twice, or it's difficult to get the same poles twice. You see them on offer somewhere, and then you try and get them the same, and they're changed, they're different. So that's why I shy away from them. So at least I know I'll always be able to replace these if I need spares.
Well, I'm having the same problem. I was buying the Colemans, and so they matched. So I knew they matched, And what's nice is the ones I have will fit in 1/2-inch aluminum.
Yep.
And I think if yours won't fit in a 1/2-inch, right?
No.
13? I guess that's 13 for you guys. You had to go bigger, I think.
I had to go. So inside these clamps, there's a
those are bigger.
There's a little aluminium tube, and I think it's 1/2-inch by 22 gauge. So I got it from it was a website that sells stuff for making like model railroad. So it's a very funny size aluminium tube, but I had to get it to suit the tent poles because of the diameter of those. So that's what it all. These are actually quite long. This is the 11 mil here, but they're a lot longer. Or it must be about 3 feet, maybe.
Oh, are they?
Like that? Yeah. So
yeah, mine actually. I'm gonna say mine actually folds up smaller than the Buddy pole, but it has more parts, more sections.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if I like that or don't like it.
Do a little housekeeping.
Get some housekeeping.
Charles.
Go ahead.
Yes, please. Thank you. We have got some super chats. If I can, oh my Lord. I think
they're all starred.
I'm having a stroke here. Prepham Paul has become a new member.
All right.
Paul, thank you very, very much. That's completely and totally awesome. And Richie has dropped a $4 super chat.
Thank you, Richie.
And I'm going to roll a couple of these together. And we have a comment from Chris Bricker, who has been a 6-month member. 6 months now member of the Church and Coffee of Ham Radio. Amen. Hallelujah.
The secret handshake.
That's right. Lee has been a member for 13 months, and he asked if Colin's volume could go up a little bit.
I turned it up.
Okay. There you go. And our
better.
favorite Swede has been a member for 14 months, and he said Colin. So there we go. And
he said it emphatically.
He did, too, with a Swedish accent.
Thank you, guys.
So thank you, guys, all y'all.
And
we're caught up.
Oh, you got more?
No, we're. Oh, well.
Okay.
Well, now we do.
Yeah, might as well.
W7LHT member for 13 months. Yep. 4 months, you rookie. I've been here. You just got to wait in line.
That's right.
Hold your water, son.
That's right. Calm down. All right.
All righty. Thank you. So the reason Collins went to the bigger poles, if you guys haven't built a hex beam, they do this in the wind. They're like this. They're just moving all over the place. And the bigger poles, that's why I said I like the fishing poles, because they were stiffer.
Yep.
They just weren't good for portable, because if you're building it for your house, don't use what Colin's using or what I'm using. You buy the right things. And the big poles, the big fiberglass poles. But great antennas. I mean, when I was in Arizona, we got Hayden on 10 meter, I think it was. I probably could have got him on my hex beam too, or my Moxon, but I didn't have it that week.
I think the Moxon has the edge, but you can get 6 bands on a hex beam, and I was playing with
3 bands on I think it was 15, 10, and maybe 17, 15, and 10, I think. Or something like that. And I never finished it. It just doesn't, it's not as easy. That pole down the middle for everything, for all the different spacing and all that stuff just works good. You can do it. But they were doing some kind of weird. I forget. The guy was running 2 pieces of coax. And I didn't understand why he was doing that. But
some people feed them independently, and then they use like a 70 ohm coax jumper between them as well. There's a couple of ways that do it. But the point, the connection needs to be on the 20 meter element, which makes it a little bit more difficult.
Right, and same with the hex beam. It goes to the 20 also, which I found was like, that's counterintuitive because now it's at the top, instead of down at the bottom.
At least it's on the center of the post, so you don't have the problems with it stretching out.
Right.
So when I finish this one, when I get this one going, because if you look at the size of it for 15 meters is a really quite a small beam. So I'm going to make a 3-band version. Like that'll be like a city beam. So I'll make one for 15, 12,
15, 12,
and probably 6, and that'll be a really small antenna.
I just hate not having 20 because I mean, if I do even a SOTA or a POTA in California, 40 is useless most of the time. You hardly ever see anybody in the area that even contact from home on 40.
Yeah.
But 20 is like just money. I mean, but lately with the bands being better, 10's great. I was doing some FT8 the other day on 10 and 15 and 12, and they were all really good.
Chuck was doing FT8?
I know. Yeah, I actually got noticed in the HRCC that I've been on. Oh, you've been doing FT8? I go, yeah, but
how
I'm
about
testing
that?
it.
I got noticed.
Right? Someone paid attention to them. Yeah, 12.
I guess somebody has me in their ham alert.
15 has been pretty darn hot, and well, actually, all those bands.
Yeah, we'll get that for another year or two yet.
All right, I got questions for Colin. You
got it. Go for it.
So, Colin, I saw your last video, and as always, you do great job on those. I wanted to ask you. You refer to the tapped transformer as an auto transformer, and then you called the other one the traditional transformer, I believe is the way.
Yeah, I just called it because it's like the twisted primary.
Yeah, and so auto transformer, if I'm wrong, tell me I'm a big dummy, but it's because it's a single wire. That's why you call it.
Yeah, I think so.
Because people ask me that question: why is this? Why aren't they all auto transformers? Because they work auto magically, right?
Yeah,
and, it doesn't require human intervention to do it. And,
yeah,
it's my understanding single wire is auto transformer. Anything else is a transformer.
Yeah. But your single wire just tapped on it. But they're really good and really easy to use. And then I got this little doofer just arrived yesterday for stripping the wires. Man, it makes things so much easier.
It looks like a tooth puller.
Hold that rascal up.
Yeah.
You posted that on Twitter, I think, right?
Yeah, I did. I posted it on Twitter, and you just get your wire, and you just do that, and it just strips it nicely. It's not.
I've been using the Dremel. I've been using the Dremel because
I've seen those
so
before.
Fast.
Yeah, and it's got a little replaceable teeth as well. So I've ordered the bigger set for the 1mm wire.
I've been using sandpaper.
A lot easier. Yeah.
On mine, which is fine on the ends when you're trying to do it in the middle somewhere.
Sandpaper.
You need to get the knife out, Jim Nuts. You get this out and start.
That's what I use most of the time.
I have that too.
Normally it's that.
Yeah.
I use that, and then I also got these little files. These little files.
Yeah.
You buy them in the little bin sometimes, at the hardware store.
The laziest way to do it is with a Dremel. Trust me.
Yes.
And you are a professional.
Well, that's the way you do it, right?
At the lazy way.
Yes. Well, like
it probably is.
You have like when I did the one for the 4-to-1s, I had like 12 cores I had to wind, and
I know it's painful.
It sucks. And so
maybe
Dremel them just took seconds.
Maybe I should have had one when I was doing all the testing. When I was like, I wrapped them. What was the biggest? I think it was 12 double wraps. I think one time, and I just kept changing every time, and we just found that 8 worked the best on that particular toroid. But man, I was
Don had a good question, and I've seen this before, and I tried it. And I was like, it takes probably longer than sandpaper to get that.
I've heard people say that. I've heard like Josh says, "Oh, I just burn it off," and I don't know what he's burning it off with because
you do get.
I know you do. You have to have a fairly good hot one, but then everything's hot when you get done, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I guess that's. Because I know I'll touch it.
Well, like on the Poseidon, so you have the 2 center wires that you need to fasten together, right? So I'm going to take a torch, and that's on the winder at that point when we're doing that, right? So I really don't see taking the torch and aiming it at the wires with the winder right behind it and trying to slag the winder at the same time. So
I do mine before I put it on there.
Yeah, I got one of these loop on ground kits. Like Josh did the video on one of these, these loop on the grounds. I got one from Matt about last year, and he sent me one of his kits to test out to see how it was to put it together. And the enameled wire that he uses, it comes off really quite easy with just solder. As long as you get the heat on with the solder.
Oh, maybe that's what it was then. Yeah.
And I don't know what type of wire it was, but it was obviously a lower temperature that it came off it, so I didn't need to strip it, and it soldered nicely just by using that.
Maybe that's what it was.
Try that.
Yeah.
So we got a comment from Adam, and he's saying he understands auto transformer to be a transformer, which there's a DC continuity between the input and output.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's right or not. That under that criteria, the traditional. So this is an early Cartena. That would make this an auto transformer. Everything I read, the criteria was single wire. But here's another antenna that I'm working on, and it's not going to show up too well because I use a green wire on there. But this uses pure induction. There is no DC continuity from primary.
I've done that as well. I have split them. When I was doing tests last year or the year before, because I was having trouble getting a match. I did actually completely split them, have them isolated from each other, but I didn't make it. It worked fine as an antenna, but it didn't do anything for the match.
Well, so the thing is, like with that's how they used to make the NFEDs originally, was through isolation.
Yeah.
And then it's my understanding they started connecting the primary and secondary at the ground point for static charge bleed off, and then that way also you would have a path to ground in the event that something terrible like lightning hit your antenna. I haven't messed around with the isolated. I just call it an inductive transformer. I don't know if that's the right word for it or not. I haven't played around with them enough to have formulated any opinion on them. So
no, neither have I.
I haven't built one of those yet. I watched your build. It looks actually easy because of the way you have to do it.
You're actually better soldering the tap on first. If you measure how much wire you need to go backwards again, you're better soldering it and then just starting at the tap point and then winding back and then winding the other bit of the wire. So that's how I would do it. I think that's how most people do it. But if you've not done one before, you can just wind it with a single wire and then scrape a little bit of the enamel off and then solder on the tap point. You can do it either way.
Nice.
We got a question from Prep Ham Paul from Colin.
If I can.
He's basically asking if the 1002 is still your favorite core.
Well, it depends. Generally speaking, yes. Again, it depends on your needs and what you're doing. But what I find is it's got the lowest loss across HF, and it'll handle 100 watt digimodes, a couple 100 watt SSB. So from that point of view, yes. I mean, when you looked at the auto transformer with the 3 cores of 240/52, that'll handle big power. But why would you want to spend all that?
They're expensive, those cores.
They're expensive. So whether you buy this 1002 or you buy these, performance-wise, there's not really any difference in them. It just comes down to this costs less. But I mean, it would be nice to get the little cores, those little chunky cores that I use in the QRP ones. I need to try those as an auto transformer.
Which core is that you're using in there?
Oh, I think it's like a 2002. I can't remember what it is. It's got a similar form to the 1002.
It's more of a bead than a toe.
It's more of a bead. Right? Yes. I think Owen Duffy, he was the ones that he first started popularizing it, but it's 43 material again.
Well, one of the things is, when you look at some of the efficiency differences, like I was doing some 9-to-1s and somebody was giving me grief about 9 wraps versus 5 or 7 wraps. And I wound a whole bunch of those. And I mean, you're talking about, 2 or 3% difference in certain cases. And like we were talking before the show, so many people are using, less than good coaxial cable, less than good connectors.
Right.
They have a bad power. So one of the things that drives me nutty is that people will use a bad power supply, right? That's not putting 13.8 volts into their radio. So you're actually getting less watts out just because of that. You know what I mean?
Well, you have $1,000, $1,500 radio potentially, and then you're putting it on a $50 switching power supply.
Right.
That is rated for the exact amount of amps that the radio is rated for with 0 overhead. You're asking the electrical gods to thwart on you. Yeah. I mean, your radio will pull close to 20 amps on full power key up. Like if you're doing CW or FT8 and you have a 20 amp power supply on your 100 watt radio, you're just asking for trouble there anyway. But
yep.
So we have a couple of questions, and then we had the super chat from Prep Paul. So Paul, thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul.
We already answered your question, so we're not answering it again, Paul.
Yeah.
So you take that, but thank you. And then let's see, we had some questions come up. Don, is it possible to build an NFED for 160 to 10? Well, if these three guys over there can't do it, it can't be done. So I'm pretty sure we're going to find out.
You pretty much use the same toroid, right?
Well,
we just got to make it's just longer wire.
Just more wire.
It's longer wire, but yeah, as I say, I think I need to look back, but certainly if you're running big power, I'm sure this 52 wasn't quite as good on 160. Still acceptable, but if you looked at the 1002, that was completely flat, tailed off very slightly at 10 meters, but it was brilliant down on 160. But
there's no core that's perfect for high and low power on every single band.
But if you've got 80 meters of wires for 160, a half wave on 160, that's going to be the peaks and troughs and nulls you're going to get on the higher bands is going to be horrendous. So I wouldn't recommend it because you don't know what your pattern's going to be doing.
I would love to have an 80 meter antenna out. That would be.
Yes.
So Steve Ellington actually went with the 52s for the higher band, right? And that it wasn't that or was it the lower bands? I forget. Because he went from the 43s to the 52s.
He had problems with, if I remember correctly, he had problems on the lower bands running.
Maybe it was lower.
A kilowatt of CW on 80 meters, I remember. And he went, and I think that was why he went to 52s. And I believe his reasoning at that point was the Curie temperature was much, much higher, which it is before it saturates. But I even remember he was putting 12-volt fans and stuff on his cases to keep them cool, to try and take the heat from them.
Yeah. He went really in depth on those things. And my buddy Gary calls them the half antennas, is what he calls the NFED half wave. So,
well, a lot of people get worked up about NFED half waves. Oh, go ahead.
No, that was what I was going to just say. And then, go ahead. Roll with it, son.
And so the thing is that when you say I want a single antenna to operate on multi-bands, you're making a compromise right there. Right. Exactly. So the antenna is not going to work equally as well on all of them. And the thing that I read the most about, so when you feed an antenna in the center, like a dipole, it's less prone to common mode current. The more off center you go, the more prone you are to common mode current. When you feed it all the way at the end, and shame on you if you don't use a counterpoise, you're really prone to common mode current. So a lot of people don't like them because of that. But then also the way that the current runs across the wire, depending upon frequency, changes, right? So like if you have a full wave on 20, you're going to have a half wave on 40. So the antenna will radiate differently. And so people say, well, you get unpredictable or goofy or porcupine looking radiation patterns. And yep, that's true. But you have one antenna that allows you to, so it's not for everybody, right? But there's a reason why they're so insanely popular, right? Because it's a good compromise to make for multi-band antenna.
Yes, if you treat it right, as you say. I mean, as I say, I've had that big one out. I've been running a kilowatt through it, and I run the counterpoise, and I put a choke on it as well, 5% back, and there was zero issues.
Perfect.
Zero issues running big power from it. So it can be done.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Don came back and he says maybe he'll do a doublet on 160 instead, and that's what I would do. But I think a lot of hams do inverted L's, right, for 160, because it's a room thing more than anything else, you know.
Yes.
160 is a lot of wire.
Yeah.
You figure 80 is 130 feet, right? On an NFED half wave, roughly.
You still need like
so
100 and some foot of vertical space, because you'll go up 30 feet and then you'll go across the rest of the 100 feet. So if you've got 100 feet, you could put up an inverted L for 160.
Well, I think Don just got some new property with some acreage, so I think that's what he's looking at.
Should be easy enough to do.
That place will be look like a NSA transmit.
It'll be a
facility
no-fly
after
zone
Don's
for
done with
birds.
it. Yeah,
That's right. You'll have 2 hex beams up. One
It'll
that you can take up and down.
It'll take Don 5 to 10 minutes to move everything in his house except for his ham shack. It'll take 17 to 18 months.
Right.
So I think, was it Tim was talking about, you're working some kind of a vertical or something?
Yeah,
also?
so it's Ape did one. You did one a year ago, Ape, a year and a bit ago, the Shortman 40.
Yeah, the with the coil in line.
Yeah. So I've done that, and I tested it in one little session there. I was working 40, 20, and 10. But I like my favorite way of running the end fed is just vertical. I like to run them almost monoband, so you're getting what I would say the optimum performance and the optimum even pattern. That's why I put them on my reels, and I have it on the adjustable thing, so I can run the exact half wavelength for that band. So that's how I was going to run that antenna. So I think it works out about 11 meters long, something like that. And I had it up, and it worked absolutely great. But I want to add 15. Was it? Yes, 15, because 15 is not on it. That was just 40, 20, and 10. So I need to get 15 on it. So I've got a trap somewhere that I made here. Yeah, here. So I've got this little trap for 15 that I want to add into that. So hopefully that's going to give me 40, 20, 15 on 10 and 1 vertical wire. And yes,
are you using Coax? Is that a Coax trap?
It's a Coax trap. So yes, there'll probably be something like 0.6 of a dB of loss. I made it a little bit low because obviously you don't want Coax traps right on the frequency you want to use them. So I've made it a little bit lower. I think it's at like 20.8 or something. I've made it for. But yeah, I've tried it. I've put a little inductance loop over it, checked it on analyzer. So I need to get that up.
Yeah, I was doing. I just did the 20 meter trap, and my overall length was about 42 feet for a 40 meter end fed. But I have a very high Q on 40 meters, which is to be expected of that, right?
Yeah, I think I got around about 100 kilohertz of usable bandwidth, 2-to-1, something like that. Maybe a bit less, but it is what it is. It's not a perfect antenna. But if you could go a little bit wider if you want many TU in your radio.
So when you have a half wave vertical versus a quarter wave, it becomes less important to have the ground radio plane out there, because the quarter wave really is something that it's looking for the other half of the antenna to work against, and its image currents are hitting the ground, right? So that's why the ground plane is so important.
Yeah.
It's less with that. So, but I was wondering how it would be impacted by the coil. But basically, you're just doing a 2/3 loaded vertical antenna at that point, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it will be a little bit down on 40 meters, but typically 40 meters is very popular here just for loafing around Europe. You call it inter-G, just in about the UK. You don't need an amazing antenna for 40 meters to do that, and it's something that's putting the RF straight up is really good for just getting around Europe. Maybe not quite as good as DX, but
I never mount mine as a vertical. I've always mounted it as a sloper.
Yeah.
I do a lot of testing on 40, and I find verticals, like my test bed is San Diego. Guys I know down in that San Diego, Los Angeles area, verticals are terrible for that distance. I probably lose 2 to 4 S units depending on the band that day. The other day we were testing it, and they were going up and down even on my doublet, but compared to my doublet, that's what I tested against, which is kind of unfair sometimes for that distance for sure. Yeah. But but last night, night before last, I was on 80 with the Poseidon, but I was running 43 feet of wire, and that thing was on the strong signals. I was telling these guys earlier, on the strong signals, that thing was within 2 S units or less. Yeah.
So we had a question.
Not the weak ones. I think maybe I said that here.
If you wanted to answer it, Colin, but they're saying, what's the difference between a toroid and 160 and 10? Like the characteristics, like what would make one better at 160 versus better at 10?
The material, obviously, because I don't know the chemistry of it, of the makeup, but yes, the type of material, whether it's 43, 61, 52, can make a difference. But certainly, I've found that the 43 in this, I think it's not just the composition, it's the geometry of the core that I find is more. It's probably as important, because you notice that the cores that are much more efficient are the ones that they're high as well. They're not just small and thin, if that makes sense. But but I think the one I've not used it yet, but is it 61 material? Yeah, you want to keep away from that. That's not as good on the low bands. That's just for the high stuff. But 43 and 52 will work on low bands.
Yeah. So for this antenna, the non-auto transformer, we'll call it the one that uses I'm sorry, I got the wrong one. The one that uses induction. This is 43 on here, but I think because we would make it for 40 through 10, that we would maybe investigate using a 61 core for that.
Yes.
Versus a 41. But like the thing is that the wavelength is so much huger when you go down to like 180 and 160 and stuff like that. It puts more stress on the core, and that's why the chemical composition is more important. But it's also the ability to handle the heat, because the bigger waves generate more heat when they go through. So Colin's dead right. Like you want to look at the core composition and see where they're best rated for, and you can hook your cores up to an NOVNA, and then see where you would have the most loss at different frequencies to make your decision as to what you were gonna use.
Yeah.
So Prep Ham Paul has a strange but interesting question. He wants to hang one out of his hotel window. What is shortest tuned end-fed half wave he could go with, 63 feet or go 33? It depends on what band you want to operate on.
Yeah, it depends on the bands.
Yep.
I thought about doing that in Hawaii, and I was afraid somebody would grab the wire, out the window.
Yeah.
Because I was going to hang it down from...
Yeah.
And I'm sure it wasn't going to be the greatest because, I was going to actually try to hang it out. I actually had a 10 meter pole. I was going to hold it out away so people couldn't grab it, but who knew where it was going to blow by the ocean, right?
Yeah, I would use a 9-to-1 to be honest with you, and then I would go with like a
random wire.
Short,
like 25.5 feet or 31. Yep. I think it's 31 feet is the other one.
Yep.
Maybe it's 29.5 and
29.5 and 35.
Yeah, but that would give you your shortest. You need a tuner, obviously, and then the thing is that you would be able to get more bands than you would with an end-fed half wave.
Yeah,
and use a choke.
Phil answered that question too.
Yeah,
it depends.
He sure did.
It depends.
I mean, it does.
Yeah,
are you wearing your depends, Jim?
No, I'm not.
No, you're going.
I'm commando.
You commando today. Yeah, I have those written down someplace and I forgot. I don't know where I threw it. Because there's a bunch of links. You guys can go on and look the random wire links up.
And while we're talking about antennas, I would like to point out that we have quite a wide selection of antennas in our store right now, including the old favorites, the Apollo, our end-fed half wave. We have the Mercury, which is our
link dipole.
Link dipole. Dang it. Link dipole. And of course the Aries, which is the random wire with a 9-to-1. And then our newest, the Poseidon, which I'm here to tell you, and Ape will verify this, we've been tearing up some FT8 with that Poseidon. I've had to take Ape out of my ham alert so I can sleep. Because, I mean, dang.
It seems to have a really low takeoff. I did it from my house night before last, and I was all over Europe. I mean...
Yeah,
I've like last night I was using my beam, the same thing.
I've gotten VK and ZL easy peasy. I've gotten South Africa, so I'm talking 7 to 10,000 kilometer contacts easily. All South America easy. This thing is working great.
Mm-hmm. Hollywood is telling us he's taking us to school like he does always. Thank you, Hollywood.
He's smarter than us.
He says analogous. How do you say that word?
Analogous.
Analogous.
Just don't say it with a long A, okay? It's a family.
Analogous.
Analogous. But he's saying the square the better in a nutshell for regular folks. So thank you, sir. And then somebody was saying, do we test when we take a look at the core composition, and do we also look at density? And so I was actually going to ask you this, Colin. So here's a 43. I have to hold it up high because the comment. So here's a 43 240, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then here is the 43. I call it the Colin core. I don't know. I can't remember the big number. I know it ends in 1002. Yeah. But the Colin core, I think the 240 is actually heavier, right? So when people start to
very
talk about
slightly, it's very. I think there's only a couple of grams in it. There's not much in the difference between those. in the mass. If you weigh them, there's very little apart.
Yes. Yeah. So it's not mass. It
No.
is the shape of the core.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
like this is the core that we use on the Poseidon. So it's a 130, means 1.3 inches across. And then we got these in, and this is a 184, but it's significantly porkier. Like it's like a plumper.
Yeah.
And
this thing's huge.
Big boy.
yeah. So this one weighs 41 grams. This one weighs 151 grams. And you can see it's thick all the way around. And then we also got some of these 200s to play around with. And I know before everybody gets upset, I know that these are powdered iron. And this is a 200.
Yeah. We don't know what our toroids are made of when we buy them, folks.
Right.
No
Just
clue. I mean, like the checkout, just give us some
it
toroids and we'll just go with it. Sure.
I wanted mint flavored, so we got these. But
Shiny.
Right.
the 200, this one's only 119 grams, and this one's the 151. So that just because it's heavier. I decided to use that in the build I did yesterday, but I have not hooked a wire to it yet. Chuck has got his outside.
Chuck said he's been testing the Poseidon at 43. You haven't told us that. I missed that memo.
Charles was in the chat, son.
Yeah, he even put up a diagram.
Yeah.
A PSK reporter map. So Colin, real quick, I need to apologize for this, but I introduced Ziggy to your channel. This is Alan, your tech in the chat. He goes by Ziggy, and he's been going deep down the rabbit hole of all things Colin, and he's talking about your Adjust-A-Wave, and he wants to know if there's any noticeable capacitance or inductance happening in your wire reels.
Zero, absolutely zero, because the wire's completely conductive. I did notice it. Before I went to the stainless steel wire, I don't know why, but I tried galvanized steel wire, and that stuff is horrible, because what happened was when it got a little bit of oxide on it, it caused, basically I think it caused inductance, because it wasn't just getting that nice contact. So as long as you're using the stainless steel, I've noticed zero impact whatsoever with inductance or capacitance. It just doesn't see it. It just sees it as a solid piece of wire.
Yeah, I've never seen anybody build antennas the way that Ziggy does. He's like one a night, and so he made what we were calling it the U-tune last night. So he made a pulley system. So he made a 4-to-1, and then he's got a long wire on it, and then he made a pulley system that he hangs at one end that he can adjust, and he has the cores on these ground mounted ropes. And the core can move back and forth as he pulls the pulley and adjusts the length of the wire. And he did that. He turned that thing around in like 6 hours from the time he said, I'm going to put this thing together, to the time he's got it in the air and he's getting SWR charts. Like, I was like, wow. Yeah.
Now we had Randall asked a question too. With a fat core, you're going to get more wire contact with the core, same number of turns. So it will require more wire to wrap. I think that's a question. I'm not.
But yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I did mine's still eight turns. But
how many inches of wire are you generally using? Ape, didn't you say 40 in your video yesterday?
So
I did. I didn't need 40, but I used 40.
So it's 18.
I ended up doing 12 wraps on this thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Poseidon's 18. That's 10 wraps, and you have plenty.
Yeah.
I think I did 24 on the fat one.
Poseidon's 8 wraps.
And still had plenty. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about, I think it was about 40 inches. I'm just looking. So that was 1,220 mils. So what's that?
You have to write that stuff down.
Yeah, exactly.
Because otherwise you waste that wire. I mean.
Yeah. Well, I bought more. I had to show that, because I bought a kilogram. So 3 pounds, 3.3 of.
Oh, you only buy 3 at a time?
No, you can buy it bigger. You can buy it.
It's the rookie numbers. Keep up, son.
So
that's
I should go grab ours.
Normally I buy it in these, but I thought, you know what, I'm just going to buy the big one, and they do them up to like 3 kilos or 4 kilos. But that will last 5 years.
I hate that they do it in pounds though. So like when I was looking at my magnet wire, they were like, here's a 3 pound roll. And I'm like, what was the last time I needed to run wire? And I'm like, that's about 6 ounces of wire. You know what I mean? Like, you just never, ever. It's just, I hate it.
So you need to go online, and then you need to go and look for a calculator and try and do it and work out what is 3 kilograms of this diameter and blah, blah, blah.
So that's about 4 feet of wire on that toroid you just showed, Colin. Okay.
Yes.
We get
But
them in
you're
the,
right.
what, 5 pound or 6 pound?
But
Yeah, I
normally,
think something like
normally what I do, I just get fishing braid, really cheap fishing braid, and I take a piece of that and I use that as my dummy, as a lot of us do,
Mm-hmm.
because this is costing you cents to do this, and then you can get the exact length of wire,
Right.
especially when you're running low and you don't want to waste it, as Chuck says.
Right.
I've got a whole box full of little snipped ends because you need to use jumpers all the time. You never know when they'll come in handy.
Yeah. I keep so many. Eventually, I throw some out, but you're right.
Yeah.
I always keep some. But I've got a box up here of wire, and that's just wire, and it's just every offcut under the sun. If it's more than a foot, it gets kept.
Well, I need to figure out what length is going to work best for the. I was calling it the plumper, and so
Plumper.
I don't know. I don't know what length to use, so I'm thinking about doing all the prototyping with speaker wire, and the speaker wire is aluminum. It's copper clad aluminum, but it's the measurement's going to be different when I switch over to stranded pure copper.
Well, very slightly. There won't be much in it. I don't think with that velocity factor.
My fake side, my faux Poseidon is using all speaker wire. The toroid is wrapped with what is that, 18 gauge speaker wire, and
if you really want to upset the OMs, tell them that you wrap the core in speaker wire. They'll go crazy.
I'm gonna.
Right.
I'm gonna post a picture on QRZ and say,
Right.
blame on.
No,
it does not. There's nothing
Ham-Man
special you gotta
CT.
do about. Yeah. Go ahead, Chuck.
Tell you the truth, if the speaker wire that Ape was talking about, you buy 1,000 feet, you get 2,000 feet, and that works just fine. Doesn't matter what you're using. You want something that's fairly tough if you're going to leave it out all the time. We use the silicone wire with ours because I get 100 feet. I just throw 100 feet in. It lays out real nice compared to a lot of wires because it doesn't have a lot of memory. But it's not the most. I mean, if you're going to leave it out all the time, I wouldn't use it for that. I would use something
it can stretch
a
as
little
well.
heavy, like
I love
PVC.
that silicone wire, but it can stretch as well.
The silicone's great, but it's not the most durable if you're going to leave it on the ground. I tried a 26 gauge loop on the ground, and I went out to the day. I think my dog broke it. It was. She gets caught up in everything, though.
Is saying that Walt uses the speaker wire all the time, and I use speaker wire a lot for antenna prototyping, and even antennas that might be a portable that I put up or down once or twice. Wrapping a core with speaker wire is different than using it as an element because you build up heat inside the core, and then a lot of the speaker wire isn't thermally rated the same way as like a PTFE or enamel coated wire. It just can't handle the voltage or the heat. So that's where that issue becomes a little bit of an issue. The other one is that if you're going to mount an antenna that you're going to leave up for any length of time, speaker wire stretches like crazy. And these guys can tell you, I've gone and cut off like 1.5 feet, 2 feet off of an antenna before because the antenna stretched that far.
It depends on your install and how difficult is it to get to your install, because if you can get to it really easily, put speaker wire up, and if you can change it, that's it. Right. But if you're putting something up that's going to be up there for years, I'd use that. I've used wire in the past. Actually, I've used hard drawn copper wire, which is effectively an wire.
Yeah.
And man, you can pull that stuff and it will not stretch.
So that stuff is a pain to deal with. It's because you can kink it, and you're never getting it out if you can't get it done.
That's the steel wire, the copper coated steel wire. If you're going to put something up for a long time, and like Ape is, I would probably use that. I don't like it for portable stuff. It has too much memory for me.
We can't get that here. That's the problem. Try to get that
you can't?
stuff. No, and I looked at the shipping. It was horrendous. But you can use the Kevlar core stuff. There's some suppliers do it. It's a military wire. It's basically it's like a tinned copper braid, but it has Kevlar through the middle of it, and it's so strong. And it's as flexible as your silicon wire, but it's got the ultimate strength. It's awesome stuff.
Yeah, man. When I built my first portable DX Commander, I built my own. And then I bought one of his. That's what I used was the speaker wire for that. It actually lays out pretty nice. I think it was the same one that Abe has. So it works fine for that. You don't want to for radios. I don't want to spend any really. I mean, I wouldn't buy silicone wire to throw out because it's too expensive for that. No.
Cheaper the better. For
the THHN stuff is good also. It's pretty strong. The only thing about that stuff usually has a coating that eventually kind of starts coming off.
Don was talking about, I think Don meant Kevlar wire, but he said Kepler wire.
Yeah.
Shame on you, Don.
Shame.
And THHN, you can get that at Home Depot.
Yeah,
With
that's
it's
hardware store
very
wire,
close
yeah.
to the speaker wire too. If you want to go
Was
speaker
it?
wire.
Oh, at there, yeah, Home Depot.
Well, I
What
use
is
this
it?
stuff. It's called Gear IT.
Gear
speaker
IT.
wire.
That I was just fixing to ask you, what brand are we
That's the
using?
one I
'Cause I
have
got the
also.
same stuff. Yeah.
And I've
got
apparently
that
I've
one
gone
and
through
one other brand.
4 rolls, according to my Amazon
4
purchase. I went
rolls.
through 4 rolls of 200 feet. So 200 feet is really 400 feet, right? Because it's twin line.
Zip cord.
So 400 and 400 would be 8. So it's 1,600 feet of that stuff. I still have 1 roll, so I bought 4. I'm going through 3.
Yeah.
But it's so cheap. I mean, that stuff you can actually just throw away and not feel bad about it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
It's susceptible to UV problems too, right? So like, that's another thing. If you have it outside a long time, it can get the jacket gets super brittle.
And I'm not saying this is the greatest thing to do, but for a DX Commander, the same exactly DX Commander, because I bought one also, it was like a pound lighter, I think, because of the aluminum wire on the radials.
Say that again.
So if you're taking it portable,
What is he talking
well,
about?
I built a DX Commander, the Expedition, and then I bought an Expedition. And by the time I built them, the wiring and all the parts was like a pound or so less because of the aluminum wire was lighter than the DX. The DX Commander wire is really heavy and nice wire, really good stuff. Almost a waste to throw it on the ground, but I mean that's the way it comes. Because
you're still using it for the ground radials, right? Because
but I used from a one I made personally, I used the aluminum wire. It's quite a bit lighter. If you're thinking about carrying, I wouldn't carry that thing anywhere, not in a backpack.
Yeah, I think the Expedition's an awesome antenna, but if somebody tells me that they take it portable, I think they're nuts.
That's
now, if you were
that's
doing
a lot
like
of work.
If you're doing an all-day activation somewhere, then I don't think you're crazy. But if you're hey, I'm going out for an hour and a half, I think you're nuts. Absolutely. Like talk to a therapist. Crazy.
Yeah, it's an all day or an all weekend antenna.
Yeah.
I set mine up in Colorado, but I was there for a week.
There's a plan for August, man. We can set up a DX Commander at the 4 days in August event and run that one.
For sure.
Exactly. Put up the hex beam in that. I mean, I think I'll put up this hex beam in about 30 minutes. I think I'll have it in less than half an hour. And that's including putting up the aluminum mast and guying that out and everything. But I wouldn't do it for an hour. You know, I still want a few hours use out of it.
No, I took mine to Quartz Fest and never put it up this year. Well, it rained. The first 4 days we were there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need to set mine up again and do some adjustments. Mine was a little bit long on most of the bands.
I'm the same. Well, 20 meters was slightly long, but I'm going to get it up. I want to get it up in the air because you know what it's like. The resonance always usually it drops as you get it higher.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I need to get it to the working height and then I'll check it. I was
out there setting it up. Some guy comes over and talks to me, and I'm trying to push this pole up, right? And it's pretty light, but when you start pushing a aluminum pole up and that, it's like, and the guy's talking to me, and I need just a little bit of help just to get it, and he didn't even bother to help me. It's like, oh, thanks, dude.
Oh, it's funny how you're working on stuff, and people are just like staring at you struggle. Like you could help.
Yeah, he could have pushed the pin through for me, you know?
Normally, it's the curiosity gets the better of them, and they just have to come and be nosy and find out what you're up to. That's what usually.
Colin, Ziggy, you apparently have quite a new follower because Ziggy really wants a shack tour, and
well, he doesn't want to see my garage because it's tiny and it needs a serious clean. There's antennas lying everywhere. Everything just it really.
Do you have like clumps of wires? Like, oh man, which antenna was that? I need to start marking mine, man, because I pull them out.
I use these clear storage tubs that you can see behind here because I can see it.
Yeah.
And I've got a plug one underneath here, and I've got quite a few. I did that a few months ago. I put a few antennas in there. I thought, I'm not going to use that for a while because but my idea is to get everything in storage bags and then I can store it away because sometimes you say, I want to use this antenna, but I need to use a bit from this. So, but then I don't want to buy, it's like you've maybe got a 15-meter Moxon and a 10-meter Moxon, but you're using common components.
I have discovered that you need to keep individual antennas in their own separate storage bags. Because if you leave them alone together, not separated, you end up with what looks like an extra antenna at the end of the week.
Well, they tangle up and everything, even if you don't touch them.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right.
You don't even have to move the box, and they'll mate.
I
Exactly.
think that
Like
with the
the
Moxon,
impulse to go with
I have one
the
of these storage, like, what are they? They're like speaker bags. So one of these camera bag case things. Sorry. And that's my Moxons in there. So I know that everything's inside here. If I want to.
Yeah, I have something like that too.
You know, because otherwise you want to go portable or you want to pack the stuff into the car, guaranteed you'll get where you're going and it won't be there. Something will be missing. So yeah.
Yeah, I try to group stuff like that, but I also like to be real modular. So like I'll have a box that has 2 or 3 of the different car frames in it with different transformers on there, and then I'll have a couple different winders in the one because So one of the things that Chuck doesn't do is he hooks the element directly to this mag wire right here. I put a wing nut on here, so that way with the wing nut I can just. So I can take it 66 or 33 or whatever.
I go out portable a lot though, Abe, and that's just another thing to catch.
Yeah, I'm not ham shaming you. What I'm just saying is that I like to have everything modular, so that way I can have 2 or 3 different end-fed transformers, and I can keep my element separately, and I can interchange it easily and quickly.
Yeah, I just that's most of mine.
What's nice about the kits is you can make them your own, right, depending upon how you want. That's right.
And that's what we always say in the videos. I always say that it's your antenna. Make it how you want to make it. We give you a certain amount of parts, and then you can go from there.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Ziggy did like one of ours and threw all kinds of extra parts on it.
Oh my God, did he ever?
Yeah, but it makes it more cost effective doing that as well, because if somebody's not used to buying an antenna, they can buy a kit and then just do what they want with it. Because you know what it's like if you're going to make stuff fresh. It's easy because I have everything here because I spent too much money in the first place for other antennas. So you can cobble stuff together that's free, but it's not really free because you paid for it previously.
Right.
But it's nice to get everything because it's the postage, it's the shipping that kills everything, you know?
Yeah.
Kills it.
So we have a super chat. Well, a member chat from Taylor.
Member chat.
Good morning, Taylor. Don't know where Taylor is at this moment, but
I think Taylor's up north
for
for me.
Planet.
Look at his glasses. He's got FT8 in reflection.
He's a hardcore ham. He's the one who made me start using remote ham radio and turned me onto that little addiction. So,
so he's the one.
Yes, Taylor's been a member for 11 months. Thank you, Taylor.
But talking of remote, I'm able to get. Last week or the week before, I'm able to remote using my phone, so I could use my home shack from my phone. It's unbelievable.
That's great.
It's awesome, isn't it?
I was in the garden the other night and I was talking to a guy in Canada using my phone, remoting him to my shack upstairs. Unbelievable.
So you're using that remote RF that?
No, I'm just using a Chrome remote desktop and Sonobus for the audio.
Gotcha.
Simple, but it works. And it works better than expected. I'm surprised how well it actually works. And the guy couldn't tell the difference when I told him what I was using or I was working remote. He says, I had no idea. He says, your audio sounds fine. No idea whatsoever. Yeah.
So Chris Bricker made a comment, and Tio and I have...
Who cares?
Well, I know. I first of all, I don't think it's ionizing radiation. That's a different thing. That's like a nuclear core or an atom bomb.
It's non-ionizing.
We're not doing ionizing radiation, which has cumulative health effects. That's not what ham radio does. But the other thing, and I wanted to point
between friends.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's like swapping DNA almost. And when we were at Huntsville last year, we operated from TO's campsite a lot. And there was, Don was there, my nemesis Don, tall Florida Todd, short Florida Todd, Mrs. TO, a dog, me, several Chucks at one time or another.
Yes.
We had a lot of Chucks.
Place was lousy with Chucks.
You couldn't swing a dead cat for hitting a dang Chuck. And Tio had a whip up that he was doing FT8 like a madman on, which we were inside, I don't know what, 20 feet of that thing at most.
You guys knew the risks.
Yeah. And
it's long term anyhow. Right?
I don't think we're exposed to any more radiation than holding a cell phone up to your melon. And it's also something with
cell
the
phones are the
inverse.
worst.
You up, doesn't it?
It's also like an inverse square thing. So with every bit of distance, the radiation falls off on a higher curve than the distance curve. It's a lot of math, and I don't remember it all exactly. But I mean, unless your face is in the wire for any length of time, I think you're going to be fine.
I mean, it falls away really quickly. I mean,
yes,
you guys have got
that's that inverse square thing.
Yeah, we've got that calculator. So we have to. So for every antenna that we put up, we have to have a calculation done.
Right.
We have to say that we've done it. So basically, I have like 30 calculations, basically of PDFs saved in a folder. So if Ofcom, which is your FCC, came to my door, they say, I want to see this calculation. That's all. So that's our license conditions. But when I was running that end-fed half wave with a kilowatt, I only needed 3 meters, 10 feet.
Yeah.
10 feet separation was all it needed
to be safe.
To be safe, and that's from. They say it's from the general public, so that could be your family. So that's from anyone that could be potentially walking by 10 feet. It's different when you're running a gain antenna and higher frequencies, but if you're running 2 meters, or you've got that Yagi up in the air, you know what I mean? So
right.
Well, yeah,
and much.
What is he? The everyday ham, Anthony? He's got a video out that shows you how to do the calculation in minutes, and
it's not hard.
And keep in mind that at 100 watts, the attenuation is, I mean, what Colin is talking about, because Chris has asked another question about it. Colin's talking about the distance, the safe distance is 3 meters, which is what, 11 feet-ish, or what, a kilowatt.
9 or 10.
That frequency,
yeah, 9 or 10 feet. And at 100 watts or QRP power, that distance is 10 times less than that. So potentially,
it's not, Jim. Actually, believe it or not, it's not. Is it? It's not. No, it's not linear. It's not linear. There's a minimum distance, and then it jumps up a bit. It's certainly on our calculator, anyway, on the RSGB one. It's funny how it works. So it's not linear.
But I would imagine the hotel wall in the way, which is going to have metal studs and brick and everything else, you're still going to attenuate the living daylights out of.
Yeah. But it's only counts on signals that are. It's taken over a 6 minute period for us here in the UK. So it's not just if you're using 100 watts, you have to put in how much power you're running and how much power you're transmitting over 6 minutes, and also what the duty cycle is as well. So if you're only transmitting for, say you're transmitting half the time an SSB, you're 50-50, and you're running unprocessed SSB, which has only got, say, a 20% duty cycle. That's only 20% of the 3 minutes. So it takes that down again. So it's not just as simple as how much power you're running for our calculations. So you may be running a kilowatt, but your effective power is over the 6 minutes is only maybe 200 or 300 watts, something like that.
All right, we have
Liberty Cave was late.
Yeah,
I'll let it go this time. Just this once.
He paid the late fee appropriately. Liberty Cave, thank you for the super chat, buddy.
Thanks, Liberty.
Yep.
And
Chris is saying, try explaining that to a pissed off father. That might not be a ham. Yeah, you're not going to win that one. They're going to be like, take it down now, son.
Yeah, don't fight emotion with logic. You'll lose every time.
Right.
Yes.
And we got one more from Ziggy. He wants to know your go-to impedance ratio. You're 56-1 guy, right?
Well, I'm 56-1 because that's what gave me the best match on 40 meters. And I did it when it was 49-1. SWR was up at 2-1. So I added on an extra turn, and that brought it down below 1.5-1. So that's why I went with it. It was fine on the other bands, but it was 40 meters I was having trouble with. So I think it depends, and it depends on what you're going to get a match with. So like this auto transformer, this is a 49-1, this is a 214. So it may be that I don't get a match on 40 meters, and I need to put an extra turn on, or I need to take a turn off. So I think it depends on what sort of match you're going to get. And obviously, if you've got a longer wire and a higher frequency, maybe that's not what you want. It just depends. It's quite a personal thing, but I think you need to get the antenna working. You need to be relatively high efficiency, and you need to be able to get a good SWR with it. So that's the two things, and the rest's up to you.
Looks like Paul's ordering up his wire.
Thank you, housekeeping there, Jim.
Yeah, Ed,
you may have more.
You're all right.
Thanks, Ed.
Appreciate it, buddy. And who got that membership? Jeff, AA4 Bravo Charlie got that membership. So congrats to Jeff for getting one, and thank you, Ed, for handing one out. Way to go.
Thanks.
And then we had the other Andy drop a super chat in there.
Woo! Away.
Thanks, Andy.
It's
always a good show when Colin's here.
We're going to drop the bass.
I think it's the third time, right, Colin?
Yes, I think it is. Yes,
several times. Yeah.
Yeah, number 3, third time a charm.
I just thought this was a funny one from John there. They just dropped. Let's adjourn the meeting. We're wrong, but we don't want to say we're wrong.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We don't have HOAs. We do have similars, but it's bad enough with the standard legislation that we have here that's quite restrictive. Never mind anything like that.
Well, I think it's, like, why just can't people be reasonable and look at facts and then come to a logical conclusion?
Yeah.
As opposed to a letting emotion and all that. I'm always right. You're wrong.
Yeah.
Ape, I don't know. I think we might have to rethink your contract.
Right. I should go back to
emotion beats logic every time.
Yeah. You can't. Well, I call it. You. Never mind. I'm not going to say that. Marvin has a question. Good morning, Marvin. What happens if you feed the Apollo at 20 to 30 feet up with a wire sloping down?
It works.
Your SWRs might be. It'll work fine. Your SWRs might be a little off. But
I would say if you're going to do that, tune it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Tune it that way. So it's where you're going to put it. I don't do that personally for portables, especially because now I've got all that weight at the top of my mast or whatever. And I kind of I've thrown mine on the ground. When I was in Quartz Fest, mine was laying on the ground the whole time and it's working great. But
the transformers behave better closer to ground, right?
Yeah, you can do whatever. You can do that.
Auto transformers behave better when you're closer to ground, but just tune it that way. I've done it where I've had it mounted out of a second story window, and it works fine.
Yeah, but it will be different every time. I know it's the same with almost any antenna, whether it's above ground, it will make a noticeable difference. But yeah, so use it one way and keep it that way.
Okay, all right. We're caught up on questions, and
what I would suggest, though, if you do that, so use the wing nut approach, and then just have two elements, right? And then that way, have one for when you want to mount it on the ground, and one when you want it in the air.
Now I did. I saw a couple people that modded the straight up Poseidon build from art instructions. Who was it that put on banana plug connectors for the wires?
Bobby, HOA.
That's right. He did banana plugs, and I like that idea. I like that idea because then you can wrap your radials in their own bundle separately. You can wrap your element in its own bundle separately and have the winder set up and not have to try and unwind one and the others are getting tangled up. I thought that was a good idea. Yeah. And that kind of goes along with your wing nut idea, some kind of detachable.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I wind everything. There's a few guys I've done videos on it. This over-under method where you put it one way, then put it the other way. And I religiously do that every time I take down an antenna. I do it over and under, so it's easy when I come to undo it. It just pulls out, and 99 times out of 100, it does not tangle. I do that.
That is the official roadie way of wrapping cables. The over-under.
Yep.
So with the silicon wire that we use, it doesn't matter.
No, you're right. It twists. You're right, because I have some here, and it's.
That's why I like it, because I don't like doing the over under thing.
That's yeah.
And the thing
don't
is,
cross the ends; it doesn't tangle.
People want to argue that one to the ends of the earth. It's like a holy war thing, right? Like, I totally agree that with wire that has a memory, that's why you do the over under. But for no memory wire, like you don't wind rope. You don't wind rope with the over under, right? And so, I don't know.
You really want to do it right. You do the tie where you tie you ever done the cables where you actually pull a loop
the
through?
extension cord method. Yeah.
As
So I
long
mean,
as you
the
pull
best
it
way
from
to
the
do
right
it is
end,
to
boom.
absolute hands down best way to do it is to not have anybody else wrap or unwrap your wires. That's where the mess happens.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Usually, yes.
Exactly.
That we learned a lot of that kind of stuff in the fire business, right, Chuck? How to.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rooks would always pull the hose off the truck the wrong way every time.
Oh, I loaded the knot thing one time for the guys, and they couldn't figure it out. So
it blew their minds. Yeah.
Yeah, if you do that, I learned that as a carpenter, because you have to deploy fast when you're a carpenter, and as long as you pull it from the right end, and I always knew which end it was because I always started it with the plugs, right? The two plugs hooked together. That's where you end. So, you pull from the other end.
So Paul is asking a question about the wire. So it's very flexible silicone wire.
Super flexible.
Yeah, and it weighs almost nothing.
You could it won't take much to weigh it down.
Yeah.
If you're going to hang it out. The only thing I would try to hang it out a way so somebody doesn't grab it and pull your radio out the window or something.
But if you get it dangling way out there, it's going to draw attention.
You will, and it's bright orange. So you're going to say, here I am doing something that the muggles will not understand. Colin, Zig is asking, what is your biggest pet peeve with how antenna manufacturers build or describe their products?
I don't know. I used to get annoyed with it, but I just live and let live now because there's other stuff more to worry about. But I think it's, it's getting in my old age. I'm not saying I would never buy an antenna because I do sometimes, but I just like to make my own because my OCD just makes me want to build my own because I say I could build it better for cheaper. But yes, I think some of the figures that are banded about, we know that are pretty much BS, but
no radials required. That one triggers ape.
Well, they all lie about the gain. Every single one of them lies about the gain. And then they all lie about the material. They're like, well, we're using a military grade space age polymer. You know what I mean? And it's just
plastic.
The only time that I would really consider buying antennas is if I was buying something like a whip, like you might need a whip for something. Like I can't make a whip. Yeah. And then things like the slide winder or the what is that coil they're making down in Australia now?
Mad Dog.
The Mad Dog.
Mad Dog, yeah.
Something like that. I would consider buying. You can make one, but they do it really good. Those guys do.
Theirs looks way better than anything I'd put together.
Yeah, so I could see that. Or if you were buying something like a Moxon or like a hex beam or something something like that where it's a really specialized antenna where it's got a lot of moving parts and stuff like that, then I would consider buying it. But
even then, I mean, so if you're wanting a heavy duty hex beam, if you tried to buy and you tried to source all those parts in that really heavy duty fiberglass pole to cut it to size, you're as well just buying one. Honestly, it's saving the headaches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so for stuff like our antennas in like the DX Commander, that's a kit, right? They're like even the DX Commander is a kit.
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm. And so that's something that, like, I always tell people, if they say, well, if you're going to buy an antenna, which one? A DX Commander. If I wanted a big antenna that I would leave up 24/7 and I was buying one, that'd probably be it.
Yeah.
But the manufacturers, when they talk about their gain on their antenna, they'll say, oh, this is whatever dBi over whatever. They're giving you the maximum gain at a particular angle, and then using that as a generalization for the entire antenna. And then some of these companies, like the Gecko antennas, they charge an exorbitant amount of money, like a tactical dipole for $200. You got to be out of your mind. You know, you build it for 25.
You see this affects Ape a lot. I mean, he was just running out of breath right there trying to. I'm apoplectic about this. And he's right. I had personal experience with the no radials because when I was a new ham, I didn't know anything, and I just knew that putting radials out was going to be a giant pain in the butt. So I said, well, I want this no radial antenna with 117 dBs of gain and magic.
Yeah,
not so much.
And sometimes the small print says it would work better with.
It probably did, but I was so excited because I was going to get an antenna.
Tactical speaker wire. Yeah, there you go.
That's right.
And out of all the antennas that I've ever played with, which is not even in the neighborhood of you guys, because I'm in the presence of masters here, I got to say this Poseidon is probably the easiest thing I've ever made, and damn, it works good. I've made phone contacts on it coast to coast. I hit British Columbia last weekend with the Poseidon at I might have been running power, but
he's talking FT8 too, guys. So.
Well, no, I've made phone contacts, Chuck. That's not too. FT8. I said phone because I knew you'd yell at me because you're using FT8.
No, somebody asked me earlier how I was getting into Europe with it, and it was FT8 for me.
Now, most of my contacts.
I was talking on the phone when I did it, though. Does that count?
It's close enough. Close enough for him.
It's close.
I got Antarctica on the Poseidon the other day, so
that's a good one awesome. When you're doing the whisper stuff, if you can get that.
Yeah. Yep. And Antarctica, if you guys are looking for Antarctica, by the way, there's 3 or 4 stations down there that are very active in the last couple of weeks. And from what I understand, looking up the QRZ page on some of those calls, they're going to be running till like November. So
I hate how the antenna manufacturers like rivet the box shut and then fill it with glue and epoxy and all that stuff. So
what was that? Was that a Palomar one that you showed the other day?
Yeah.
That was full of like spray foam?
Yeah, it's full of spray. But that's the other thing is it'll spray foam it. So even if you do get the box open, which is in feet in and of itself, then you still can't see because it's got that foam dried up all over the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no secret, but they don't want you to see it regardless.
Right.
The
thing is, I think that they should tell you everything about the antenna. This is the wire that we wrap the core with. This is the core type. These are the connectors that we use. So you can make an informed decision. Instead, they just wheel somebody out that's like, this here antenna boy going to get you them contacts that you've been looking for. You know, and they don't do anything to help. It just stabs me.
Yep.
Right.
So our buddy Aloysius is asking if we're going to have a booth at Huntsville. What we're actually going to do is what we call 4 days in August or 5 days in August, which is going to be the entire week before Huntsville Hamfest. We'll be up on Montesano Mountain. We'll be partying and making contacts and doing ham radio stuff and ham radio adjacent stuff. And then at the Hamfest itself, we'll just be walking around probably with some type of camera in our hand and come up and say hi.
And we will have a meetup too.
An
official.
I can ship kits to James also.
You're not coming to
take
Huntsville?
A few kits. I'm not sure about Huntsville, but either way, okay. I mean, I think we're going to do Dayton. We're talking about a booth at Dayton.
Well, I think Baltimore Mike is not going to be selling anything this year, but he still has his spot, and he offered us access to his spot for a mobile command post and
base of operations.
Station. Yeah.
Hey, are we doing a members meeting Wednesday?
Yes, it would be the first Wednesday.
Okay,
we got to post that.
My inner voice in my ear was telling me we should mention that.
Okay, is that voice in your ear have a name?
Yeah, Kathy.
Right. Members only meeting Wednesday night. If you are a member or if you're not, there's a chance to sign up. Hit the join button down below, and we'll get you the link and get you into the event.
I'm going to be gone for a few days, but I get home that day, so hopefully I'll get home in time.
Yep.
100%.
Yeah.
Adam, thank you.
I mean, we've taken, by telling what we put in our antennas, we've taken a lot of flack from other people that obviously have never tested it themselves, and we did.
The other one is that we
didn't think it was going to work.
we do testing and share all the results. And if somebody comes along and says, test it this way, we'll test it that way and share the results. You know what I mean? Like we don't have any problem with that. And then one SOB took a picture of the 9-to-1 wrapping that we use and was selling some kind of jive 9-to-1, and they used our winding picture. They changed the logo out on it and used our picture.
What? Was that the one you posted about the other day in our chat?
No, I posted a long time ago.
Okay.
I have Ape changed the colors a couple of times now.
Okay.
Right.
In fact, I'm not sure we did on the last one. Oh, I wrote it in there. I wrote a note on all the instructions though. Yeah, sometimes you can't get the right color. That's the problem with using colored wire. Sometimes you can't get it.
John, exactly right.
Yes, we all do.
Yeah, exactly.
And let's see, I think
it was actually the voice on my phone, really. It wasn't.
Y'all make sure you smash the like. It owes you money, and it needs to make you a sandwich, so hit that button. And Colin Prepham Paul said, thanks for all the work and information you shared. Yes, we like Colin because he's got a Scottish accent, which is just cool as hell, and he's smarter than all of us.
I'm starting to really understand it now, too.
I'm not. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you do a great job, Colin.
It is all built with PFM. That's exactly right.
Yep.
So we had a little thing I'm on. Our winders are 3D printed, but it's a different process of 3D printing. It's still called 3D printing, but it's called
multi-jet fusion. Yeah.
So it's a powder versus a reel of line.
Hold it
and
up
it's
there.
It's 100%. It's 100% infill.
It's solid.
There's no gaps, air gaps and stuff.
Can you get real close, Ape, or is it going to lose focus?
And it's nylon and not plastic. Well, I guess nylon could be argued as a type of plastic, but it's more durable in the sunlight and stuff like that.
It's a much higher temperature product, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and I mean, you can put some force on this thing, and it's not going to snap like if you have like an ABS or something like that.
And if you're doing an all-day POTA with a 3D printed, a PLA winder, which is the most common kind of 3D printed plastic.
Don't leave it in your car.
If you leave it laying on the dashboard, wherever it gets direct sunlight, it will eventually be sad and start to sag.
Well, even some of the other materials like the PTFE and the ABS or ASA,
PETG.
PETG is what I meant.
But anyhow,
those Teflon.
Yeah, those materials, your core gets hot. So the thing is, like, we'll tell you that our antenna is rated for 50 watts digital, but I know every single one of you turns it up to 11 and operates digital, and that core does heat up and it does get hot, and it can melt 3D printed plastics because you'll hit the same temperature that the plastic extrudes at in the 3D
glass
printer.
Temperature. That's right. And Ape, we had it up to 160 on the production Poseidon.
Yeah,
core 160 degrees centigrade, so 384 Fahrenheit.
We were testing.
It was fine.
Or Jim was testing.
It was working fine.
Stress test.
Working fine.
Yeah, it was funny because I was talking to Jim and he says, I'm gonna give it the power. I'm gonna give it the beans. And then you were like, I'm up to 120. I'm like, I thought you said you was going to give it the power. And then would you go up to 250 or something like that?
I was running FT8 at 250. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
250 watts. And
I ran mine for hours at 100.
Yeah,
no problems.
I wouldn't even worry about it at 100 anymore. I don't know if that's our official line, but personally, I'm going to do FT8 at 100, not care about the Poseidon.
I don't know why, but
well, you got yours for free, by the way. So I mean,
yes, I did. That's true. But
that's why we make recommendations. We know you boys are going to break them.
But you know,
we all don't listen.
Parts, guys,
we're speccing it less than it'll actually do. So when you do break it, we can tell you, well, we told you not to do that. But
we've never had one break, and we've never had. So the thing about the Poseidon is that we haven't had one person reach out to us with problems putting it together, right? Which is the other antennas we've had questions.
It's really. Michael said it was kind of average with the other ones, but I think it's easier than most of the other ones because the core is a little smaller. We did go with a little thinner wire on that one, and it's super easy to that wire is really easy to wind for some reason. Mm-hmm. Easier than most mag wire for some reason. I don't know. Oh, the pink tumblers Don wants to know about, James.
2 to 3 weeks, whenever whenever Arctic
they
sends
get
them.
here.
Yep.
We'll send you an email, Don.
When they're on the website, that's when they're here.
And no 40%, no 40 ounces.
Yeah. Colin, did you have anything else you wanted to plug or share? What are you working on now?
No, not really. As I say, I've got the hex beam and I've got the Enfed half-wave. I've not been doing as much. You see my videos. I've been work's really busy. I've been working in Germany a few weeks this year already, so there's not as much. Yeah, so that's probably why you can understand me better, Chuck, because I've had to speak very slow to these Germans.
Oh,
yeah.
Have you seen the foldable hex beam?
Yes, that's the German design.
I thought about I worked with that one for a while, and the parts I got weren't stable enough for what I wanted to do.
See, for what he charges for that antenna, it's really good value. I looked at that, and
it is.
Okay, shipping's another thing, but if you're in Europe, that's a really good value antenna.
Which antenna?
It's the same price. It's a foldable dipole. You build it. It's basically a kit still, but he gives you all the measurements. You build it, and once you set it up, then you just fold it up with all the wires on it. It takes like 5 minutes to set it up.
So set up.
It's pretty cool.
Deployment time is.
I was working on that.
Yeah, I seen those.
I don't know if you saw those.
Yeah,
I used those point. They just weren't stiff enough, and they wanted to turn, and I wasn't. I needed to glue things, and I didn't glue it yet, or pin. Actually, I was going to pin things because they have little pinholes in those things. But it was really cool. I mean, I'm surprised it hasn't caught on here. Yeah, no, that was it was like that was one of my sources when I was doing the research. But I think once I get this hex beam finished, I still want to make the coaxial hex beam center. So I found a little cool program. So my tip of the day, there's a program called AppCAD. So, and you can basically design transmission lines. So you could take a square and put your center core, tell it what the dielectric is, and it'll give you the characteristic impedance. So you could design your own 50 ohm. I think it's like a microwave program type of thing, but AppCAD, I think it's like no longer supported, but you can still download it and use it for free. So if you want to use that, it's quite cool.
I'm not hearing any doubling. Paul's saying that there's doubling going on.
Yeah, some of his messages are. No, it's not an audio thing. He's sending a comment
the chat.
and then it's sending it twice.
And then thank you, Robert.
Rob Ferguson
Thanks, Rob.
is a new member, and that is so cool. And if you're in bed listening to this, wake up. Rob, thank you very much.
I actually thought about ordering one of those antennas. I don't know what shipping would be to the U.S. though.
Yeah.
Because he's super. Oh,
a lot.
I was going to tell you. Did you see the way Buddy Hex does it? They just use 2 aluminum poles on theirs.
Yeah. So
instead of doing the wiring inside.
Yeah. They're doing effectively it's like twin feed 50 ohm.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well,
the guy. There's a UK built hex beam. MW0, I can't remember his name, Anthony, but he makes 2 versions. He makes a heavy duty version and he makes a travel version, and it basically uses 2 square tubes the same. So that gives him his. So he's obviously calculated that to give basically 50 ohm twin feed. So that's another way to do it.
That's easier. It looks easier, way easier than. I've looked at the other ones, like, man, how are they doing that?
Yeah,
I just did what you did.
Yeah, if you look at
that was a hard enough thing.
What's the guy in the States? K4 KIO. He makes it, and for what I can see is he uses a round tube and he uses a piece of flat bar in the middle for the center conductor. But there has to be that flat bar has to be a specific width, a specific thickness, and it needs to be a specific distance from the side. So it's very smart and ingenious how he's actually did that and how he's managed to tweak that to get it to exactly 50 ohms. So well done him. Because that's quite good way that he does it.
We got
all right. We're talking antennas here, and Jim's getting antsy. So, go ahead.
Jim's
you got
not
something?
It's 10:30, Chief, and some of us got to go to.
I know.
Some of us got to make water. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You can't see my eyes are yellow behind my glasses.
Right.
That's right.
But this is a good question, and then we need to shut it down. Sean is asking, if you don't have a radio with an internal tuner, is there any benefit in using a 43 rather than a 52 in the Poseidon?
So the 43 is a more efficient core, but the SWR is higher because of that.
Right.
So if you're using an external antenna tuner, it's probably it'd be hard to argue that it's not better. But if you're using a tuner inside the shack, which you probably are, because that's what normal people do, you are going to have higher SWR at your antenna feed point, which means more reflection on your transmission line, which means a bigger standing wave, right? Which means you have to contend with that. Now, people in Florida insist that that's not an issue and not a problem, but it is a little bit. So,
right.
You know,
and to tell you the truth, when I had them out testing them side by side, I couldn't tell a difference on the radio.
well, the efficiency is probably negligible, right? I mean, it's I think it's like when we measured, I think it was the highest difference in one of the bands we saw was like 7% or something like that.
Right.
But you know, it depends on everything that you have there. What I can tell you is that my Poseidon's outside and I'm running it with an external tuner and it's got the green roid on it and I'm happy with it. So that's it.
If you do have an internal one, you want the green one for sure. Don't do the red one. Don't do a 43. Don't do a 52. If you want it to tune on all the bands. All right, guys. Well, Colin, great having you again, man. I love having you on the show.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Appreciate that. Thanks, guys.
You're one of the guys I always watch because I always want to learn. So you guys don't know Colin's channel, make sure you get him. Check him out. And you can tell that he must know
Jeff's
something because Ziggy's watching him.
Jeff,
no, that's good to know Ziggy's name because I have seen him leave a few comments on the channel, which I've always replied to.
All right. So thanks for being here, everyone. And we appreciate you guys showing up.
I'm going to hit the button. Y'all have a great day.
73 all.
Bye,
See y'all.
everyone.